Boom! Welcome back, everybody, to the Omniverse Comics Guide podcast. We're your Omniverse Comics Guide guys. I am Eric. That's my pal Dave, who can't stop laughing. I'm not sure what I said, but I think it was the boom, the emphasis on the boom this week.
It was a beautiful moment, man. It was very kind of 1980s pop star. Don't make it feel good.
Awesome. Welcome to everybody who's with us live on Twitch. Thank you for joining us. As always, we got some of the usual suspects here. We really appreciate that little hangout that we got going on every Wednesday. Yeah. Everybody that watches on YouTube, love that. Thank you so much for tuning in on YouTube. Our last couple of videos have been getting some good traction. People are into that X-Men. Yeah. I guess the X-Men 97 thing is got everybody thinking about X-Men in the 90s. So check out that episode. And of course, visit the omniversecomics.guide for the reading orders, for the podcast, for the collector item specials. Everything is there. And my boy Dave is at the helm. That's the man. Thank you, Dave. Shout out to my buddy. So,
cheers, mate.
For this episode, top 10 miniseries. Actually, you got to send a shout out. You do that.
We do. It was quite a while ago. We had a suggestion from Murdock Sketchbook on Instagram. It's Murdock Brody Thomas, and he suggested like 4-issue one-off trades. So we've kind of taken our spin on it. We're going to do miniseries, so it can go up to 6 issues, and as long as it's a self-contained story. What was the phrase you used before?
It was so funny when I sent that to you, because I make myself kind of like little rules or guidelines to try to make it interesting or not repeat ourselves, which I'll always repeat myself because I'm boring that way. But I think it was like, I try not to, but.
You didn't fall into my trap. Damn you.
I know. I always do. I wasn't looking at what you were saying. But what did I say? I think it was something that it doesn't involve anything else in the sense that it's not part of a greater whole.
Ooh.
I think that's how I put it.
Something like that, right?
And I think the best way that in my picks, because I definitely cheated, but they're miniseries where you don't have to get tie-ins of this series and that series that have, like, you know how usually like the Infinity Gauntlet, for instance, is a miniseries that I would have picked as a 6-issue miniseries, of course, but you've really got to read quite a little bit surrounding it to really get the full picture of what's going on.
In theory, you can read it separately, or War of Kings you can read separately, or, you know, that kind of thing, but it's part of a bigger thing. This is we're being strict about standalone.
Dave, why don't you take it away this week and go first for us?
Shit.
Sorry. I can do it.
No, do you know what I did? I did a last minute swap. So, because there was one I was going to choose, and I thought, like, I'm just not sure I remember it well enough. But I'm going to open with Universe by Albert Montes. It's an Image Comics book. People who've watched for a while will know I love a bit of a landscape comic book. And the reason why it's landscape is because it's featured on Panel Syndicate, which is the Brian K. Vaughan website, where you can kind of pay what you want, and you can get books like Friday, Bad Karma is on there by Alex DeCampi. So Friday's by Ed Brubaker, Barrier by Brian K. Vaughan, all sorts of other stuff. This is kind of an anthology book, and each issue it's got a dark way that our future could go if we're not careful from a scientific point of view. I don't want to spoil any of the stories, but a lot of them are very, very weird and quite funny, and some of them do relate to each other. But the winning part for this book is when you get to part 6, it does all start to tie up. And actually, the thing that's great about part 6, it's almost got this Blackadder Goes Forth vibe to it, in that there's a series of standalone stories. They're all kind of slightly connected or thematically connected. And the last one, where you've been kind of laughing at it all the way through, the last one plays your emotions in a different way. And that was the clincher for me, because I'm reading it going, this is kind of fun. It's like weird, and I'm in. But, it's a good read. And then I got to the end, and it was like, this is staying. That's staying. That's going on my shelf.
Nice.
It's 6 issues, fully self-contained. I don't know if there are any plans to do any more. There is a number 1 on the spine, but I've not seen any more come out. It's a great book. It's funny. It's strange. The art's kind of cool, and you can just have a fun read. Go for it.
Those landscape books are quite an enjoyable reading experience, because it's different, but when it's done right and done well, it's quite a fun experience. I think of Echo Land all the time. So good.
Yeah, prime example.
So for my number one, this is, I consider it to be a mini-series. It's 4 issues. It's a self-contained story, but it's numbered in the regular numbering of the book. Right? Do you know which one it is?
No.
Okay. And you could call me out on it and say that's not a mini-series.
I'm calling you out.
Dude. You could call me out, please. Everybody in the chat, call me out if it doesn't count. But I feel like it's so unique because it is part of regular numbering, but it's its own story. Batman, Year One.
Screw it. It's our show. We can do what we want.
And that's what I was thinking, right? Obviously, there's so many miniseries that we can pick, but for those watching it, you also want to make them feel like, okay, I can pick that up, and I'm not going to be bogged down by. But make sure you read this series first, and after you're done, you got to make sure. If you want to, you can. After this, Batman opens up to all kinds of different things. You can continue with like the Jeff Loeb somewhat sequels of like Long Halloween and Dark Victory, if you want to. But if you just want a classic Batman, well-told origin story with David Mazzucchelli art, Frank Miller on the script, basically telling the Batman story that you feel like, well, duh, this is always should have been the origin. It feels like, but it was
you
written.
You do read it feeling like, was it not? Was there a point when it?
Exactly, and so many movies obviously have borrowed from the tone of this book, the type of Bruce Wayne Batman that is presented in this. It was something different for Batman, that's for sure. So easy pick. It's a lob, and anyone can go to any bookstore around the world and find this book. If you're new to comic books and you just want something easy to settle into, I think Batman Year One is a pretty safe start, and I consider it a mini series, but I love that it's in the regular numbering of the book. But what continues in like the next issue has nothing to do with what happened in those 4 issues. It's just like, here we go.
Apparently
and
it
we're
was
out.
meant to be standalone. So according to Salazar Knight on YouTube, Batman Year One was due to be a one-shot by Miller and Mazzucchelli until Denny O'Neil decided as editor to make it part of the main series because post-crisis Batman needed a refreshed origin story. So they decided to use it for that, but that was never the intention. It was meant to be the origin of Dark Knight Returns Batman. So O'Neil went against Miller's wishes, and that's how he used it, which apparently really upset Frank Miller. And that's why Miller didn't return to Batman for a long, long time. Go and have a look at Salazar Knight's videos on YouTube so you can see for yourself.
Yeah, I mean...
But that gives us more justification to have it
in the miniseries, you mean?
In the miniseries.
Yeah,
episode.
I think they wanted to make Hush a 12-issue maxi series, and Jim Lee insisted he wanted it to be like Year One that was part of the regular numbering that would be coming on shelves monthly. Like it also made him, I think, forced him to keep a schedule to have those 12 consecutive issues.
And sales shot up.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah, completely. Yeah,
so I think Batman Year One has been analyzed and broken apart to death through the years, but I figure as an opening miniseries option, check that one out if you haven't.
Okay, I'm going to jump back to Marvel. There are tons and tons of minis from Marvel. Like you were saying earlier about the 80s being massively about minis. Like miniseries were really made popular in the 1980s. I know that there were plenty of them that came out in the 90s as well, and you still see them, but the 80s was when they really, really started picking up. This is a 1980s story. It's collected. The tricky part is you can get it in this book, but it is the criteria for 4-issue mini. You can also buy the original collector edition, which is Machine Man by Barry Windsor Smith, Tom DeFalco. It's set in the year 2020, and Machine Man, like, there are no more heroes. Machine Man wakes up in a dark, twisted future with his old enemy, Sunset Bane, who no one will know because she was in like the Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko era Machine Man series. And it's a dystopian future, and it's kind of what was that film called? The Warriors. It's kind of got that vibe to it, that old film. I can't remember when that came out, late 70s, early 80s. It's got that vibe to it, and it's about that rebellion and rebelling against the big corporation, which is always kind of funny when that kind of book comes out and it's from a big corporation. Hey ho. But at the end of issue 2, there's just this classic reveal. Sunset Bane brings in some assistance to take down Machine Man. I love that the goofiness of it is kind of gone from Machine Man because the art is by Herb Trimpe and the inks are by Barry Windsor Smith, but it feels more like Barry Windsor Smith than Herb Trimpe's art. But the foe that she brings in to help is the Iron Man of 2020, and that's the first time you ever see Arno Stark. And it's just such a cool, horrendously dated, but just fantastic costume. He's got these kind of weapons on his hips. He's got cogs on his shoulders. It's awful, like that kind of chompy looking mouth. But they have a showdown towards the end. It's going to build to that. You know it's building to this, so it's not really a spoiler. But that showdown is just gritty. Like the way that they show the impact of their fight is fantastic. And it's Tom DeFalco, and Tom DeFalco sometimes is seen as being quite old school. So he did a decent run on Thor, pretty lengthy run on Thor. He did a fairly lengthy run on Fantastic Four. Spider-Girl, he was really well known for. He's kind
Spider-Man,
of course, especially in the 1980s, and he came back again in the 90s for Spider-Man. So he's done his fair share, but I think some people kind of see him as a bit more of an old school writer. This does not feel like an old school book. I mean, I don't know how old he was when he wrote it, but I think it was about 1984. It's incredible, and I love it. It was a backup series in Marvel UK's Transformers title. So I read it as a kid, but it was chopped up into 8 pages at a time, and I'd read it every week. There'd be another 8 pages each week. So I read it in a very different way. And when in the 90s, they released it as a trade paperback, and I got it with that beautiful Barry Windsor Smith cover, and he's slightly disassembled, and I think you can see his brainy parts. It's a stunning series. It's very 80s, but it feels ahead of its time. I mean, not just because it's set in the future. It literally is ahead of its time. So it's great stuff. If you've never read it, I know that I occasionally will bang on about Machine Man because I love him so much. But if you've never read it, seriously, give it a go. It's old school, but it's fantastic. I love it. Please go find it. You treat yourself.
Nice. I've never read Iron Man 2020 before.
No,
I wasn't sure where it lines up in the 80s stuff and how it holds up like today, if it was something just of its time or if it's past, now that we're past 2020, is it going to read like, well, this feels aged?
Well, I mean, it kind of does, but the thing is, if you do get this trade, which I think is actually fairly inexpensive at the moment, I got it for like £5, I think. But this book includes a Spider-Man annual as well that he appeared in, which is set before that mini, and all of his other appearances. But the best part of it is easily that 4-issue mini, and I bought it solely for that reason, and it was worth every penny. The other version goes for a bit more, but if you really, really want that on your shelf, and it deserves a place, then it's your call.
Okay, where should I go next? All right, here's my pick that I was thinking, should I not? But it's a Matt Kindt and Jeff Lemire team up. It is The Valiant. I feel ashamed that I don't remember the artist. I think it was Paulo Rivera. Was that on your list?
No, I'm literally just close to reading it for the first time.
Okay, there you go.
It is Paulo Rivera, yeah.
All right. Good old memory comes in handy. So thank you for having that book, because I couldn't find my copy of it. But The Valiant is a 4-issue miniseries that takes place within the Valiant universe. So for just a quick little primer for anyone listening that hasn't heard me talk about Valiant before, it is its own self-contained universe, and the characters have team-ups and things like that, and they have events. But this is an event that you don't have to buy Exo Man of War, for instance, or Ninjax crossover. The characters do converge here, and you kind of get a taste of how the Valiant universe functions, what kind of the rules are, what the hierarchy of the characters and what their strengths and purposes, how they're best used. I think it's a very good story that helps you kind of understand the inner workings of this comic book universe that can either make you go and start at the beginning or continue going forward. And if you just like the story for what it is, it's a pretty good story, but most likely you'll want to continue reading it, because taking back what I said, it is part of a greater whole as far as the universe of Valiant is concerned. Yeah. But you're not bogged down by, well, I don't get this because I didn't read Ivar the Time Walker. Yeah. It's kind of designed to be as reader friendly as possible. So
Yes.
I wanted to pick this because it's an easy jumping on point and most likely still easy to find digitally. I'm not so sure how easy it is to get online.
I
And
got that a little while ago, like about a year ago, and it was fine. That was the deluxe edition, but you can still get the trade as well, fairly
yeah,
easily.
highly recommend it. Like I always say about Valiant, but that is a mini series within that universe that if you don't know where to begin, it'll kind of give you enough of a feel for what these characters are like. So check out the Valiant. And again, Matt Kint and Jeff Lemire working together, either plotting, scripting, sharing the duties with Paulo Rivera on the art. A great team of creators working on this book. And I think Warren Simons was the editor at the time. And for those who don't know that name, I think he was most well known for working with like Matt Fraction and Ed Brubaker when they were over at Marvel. So things like the think of the Hawkeye series, perhaps. He might have oversaw that, as well as the don't quote me, guys, if I'm wrong. Call me out on it, as well as the Immortal Iron Fist. He was the editor on that series as well. Yeah, so
that's cool. Incidentally, as well, there is a sequel of sorts called The Valiants, which is due to come out this year.
Well, there you go. Okay. That's exciting to know that they're releasing a sequel. I was wondering what was going on at Valiant.
You jump onto Valiant's Instagram and you'll see their announcements for what's coming out. And I was literally looking through the stuff going, oh my God. And I'm really behind. And I'm just going, I need to read however many years worth just so, because I want to do it in order.
Number 3 for you.
Number 3. Okay, my number 3. This is called Raiders. It's by Daniel Friedman and Crom. This is where my cheat kind of comes in. This is essentially a 4-issue miniseries, but it's not. It's a fresh trade. Now, I'm going to apologise slightly for this one because I wanted to read this before we did the episode and I didn't get a chance. I'm going to read the back to assist me. As it says on it, it's an original graphic novel about family, freedom, and killing monsters for loot. Marken and Maron, inseparable brothers, are dungeon raiders in a land ruled by corrupt royals and filled with fantastic danger. But just as Marken decides it's time to hang up the sword and give up the raiding life, both brothers find themselves at the wrong end of the powers that be and stumble upon a secret that may unravel the entire system. I read this. I think I was somewhere in public reading this, just waiting. It's the second time I've done this with a Daniel Friedman book. Or I think I'm waiting for my daughter to come out of something and then just going, no, be late. I need to finish this. Crom's art is very, very simple, and I'm not being derogatory at all. It's got a real independent vibe to it. Bit of fantasy. But what's nice about their stuff they do together is there's a sense of humour to it. And also when they play with the tropes of this kind of story, as they do in Bird King, there are little twists that you don't see coming. So everything you think you're going to get, you don't. And again, I do love something that leaves you feeling... It leaves you with an emotion, like a very strong emotion. Whatever that might be, whether you're upset or you're angry or whatever. I like having... Or you're really... euphoric. At least there's something. This will give you the feels of some description, but it'll be up to you exactly how you feel about it when you've finished. I've gone the route of reading a certain amount of fantasy stuff lately, but I'm quite picky because fantasy's not my area. I think I've said on previous episodes, I don't like that kind of... Normally it's in American cartoons where they're going, hi, I'm a medieval knight. How are you? Or they're doing really, really bad English accents. Oh, no. My horse has run away and I'm going to have to run after it. And you're going like, what accent is that? Like, why are they always voiced by like Americans? Like, get English people in. So, because you don't get that in comics, which is one of the benefits. So, give it a read. I won't hop on about it. It's one of those things as well that you could read it multiple times and be really, really happy because it's really rewarding book. Go pick it up. Daniel Friedman's always a winner. New to the Omniverse this week. Following on from Delete, we released the follow-up, which is Out of the Shadows. The Titans establishing themselves as the premier super team in the DC universe following Dark Crisis and Infinite Earths and the disbanding of the Justice League. That all then leads into Beast World, or Titans Beast World, because that's the name of the miniseries. On top of that, I've updated Kree Skrull War. I've also updated I Die Like the Stars, which is a Silver Surfer story, and I've updated Day of Judgment, which is the 1999 DC event by Jeff Johns. Podcast and video. Don't forget to jump on and see our incoming May episode, which will let you know what's coming out this very month. We've also done Top 10 Resurrections. That was a fun one to do. And for our subscriber exclusive, there's a brand new Marvel Universe Book of the Dead, Where Are They Now? God, I love CDZ listers. These are Z-list characters. The Animen. They were Daredevil villains. So,
well,
yeah.
That's cool. Resurrections, deaths, where are they? Like, it's like going to church when you go to the Omniverse Comics Guide, right? It's life and death.
With a new religion, dude.
Anything else?
No. God, what do you want?
Just making sure before we get
more
back
stuff
into
to come this week.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, back to the number 3s. I love Jim Starlin, and I haven't experienced enough of the artist who's on this book with him, and that's Cosmic Odyssey. Version of the Justice League is facing off against the New Gods. Of course, it has to do with the anti-life equation, but you've got these very interesting team-ups. I mean, look at this team of heroes that you got here. You got Starfire from the Titans. Let me just show you the cover there. Starfire from the Titans, Martian Manhunter. You got some action with Etrigan. The demon is in this. So it's part cosmic, part magic. You got Dr. Fate is a big part of this storyline. You've got the New Gods. You've got Apocalypse. It's a lot of fun. I call it a classic just because of how long it's been in print and on the shelves and the creators involved and things like that. That mixture of a little bit of everything that you could get out of DC with the big name characters within those realms. So like in the mystical side, you've got Etrigan and Dr. Fate. And then on the Justice League side, you got your Superman, Batman is there. But then you even get, I love the fact that you get a little bit of the New Gods because I'm a sucker for that Kirby world. Not so much what Kirby did when he was writing it, but I love the stuff he created.
Oh, I don't know. I've got a soft spot for what I've read so far of Kirby's New Gods. I really liked it because it's just so weird.
It's weird. That's what I love it. I love it. So, yeah, check it out.
Also, if you're thinking of reading the Jeff Johns Green Lantern run and Green Lantern Corps by Peter Tomasi that goes with it, a lot of people will steer you towards some of the stuff like Emerald
Twilight. Yep.
Yeah. One of the ones that you should also read from a Green Lantern Corps perspective is this. It's this book. There is a key Green Lantern moment in that book.
In Cosmic Odyssey?
In Cosmic Odyssey, yeah.
Yeah, you got...
I don't want to ruin it. I think at one point it wasn't going to be in continuity.
Is that right?
I think my understanding is it wasn't going to be in continuity, and then I think it had to be referenced later for it to be brought into continuity.
Got you. And again, it's a major miniseries that doesn't affect all the other titles that these characters come from, like the Superman line, the Batman line. They're not affected, and they don't have all these tie-ins that make sure you read the Batman number 525 for Cosmic Odyssey. Just read Cosmic Odyssey, you're good.
Absolutely.
And Jim Starlin, Mike Mignola. Come on.
Oh, you can't go wrong, man. What a bizarre combination that is, really, when you think about it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, and it's cool that you've got this Jim Starlin so heavily associated with Marvel Cosmic and Warlock and Thanos, and tell that sort of, not the same story, but those versions, those similar characters from the other side. What does Jim Starlin do with it there?
I'm going to run something I wasn't going to run at all.
Do it.
Just decided. This is something I've read in the last couple of days. It's technically the beginning of IDW's Transformers universe, as it were. It's Transformers Megatron Origin. It's a 4-issue miniseries. It's written by Eric Holmes, who I'm not that familiar with, because the actual relaunch was initially written by Simon Furman, who wrote Marvel UK's Transformers and the end of Marvel US's Transformers series. He came back for the IDW relaunch, which should make perfect sense, but there was something not quite there about it at that point in those early issues. They're fun, but it's not the peak yet. But this miniseries explained the origin of Megatron, his role as a mine worker, and the beginnings of his rebellion and the formation of the Decepticons to rebel against the functionist society that they lived in, because people are given jobs based on the form they transform into. So they're rebelling against that. Like if you turn into a certain thing, you're only going to be a miner. You're only going to be this. You're going to be a librarian. It's all decided.
It's like a caste system.
Essentially, yeah. Which is not the kind of thing that was happening when I was reading Transformers in the 80s. So it added that next level element to it. I'm not 100% if that idea was introduced in other things before then. It may have been. But that was the way they played it. Part of the reason for reading it again as well is because they've just released the trailer for Transformers 1, which there's been a big build-up to this film coming out. It's an animated Transformers film. And it was funny as hell to watch the reactions of people watching it. Grown men just going... Because turns out it's a kid's film.
Oh,
they weren't expecting that. Yeah, and it looks like it's very much played for laughs. But I played it to both my kids separately,
and they're ready.
They love it. They like, do you want to go? Yeah, like brilliant. We need that. We need that passing of the torch.
You have to get them somehow intrigued by it, and then there's going to be a whole universe for them to discover. Like they're not always going to like that version, especially when what's this one? Yeah. What's that version of the thing? Can I watch that movie, Transformers? It's just a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
All right. Woohoo.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm just really looking forward to taking them. I don't really care what happens. But part of the thing they do in it is they refer back to this functionist society and about the rebellion against that. So if you want to see where that idea appears quite heavily, at least in the comics, it also tells you that version's origin of Megatron, the IDW version. Go seek out Transformers Megatron Origin. It's 4 issues. It's essential to understanding the character, and that character grows over the course of IDW's Transformers history. His story is great to watch. You could probably just read the Megatron issues and just see how that character develops. Regardless, even though this miniseries didn't launch it, it's the best place to start.
Good pick. Always getting some Transformer.
I wasn't gonna, and then I thought,
you know what? I'm gonna go IDW too.
Ooh.
Okay, this one now is a 5 issue. I know that for sure. I checked. And I have spoken about this book as well. But in the IDW childhood cartoon standalone miniseries, if you want to get nostalgic but read something that isn't going to bog you down, let's go with The Last Ronin. A safe bet for anyone who grew up watching Ninja Turtles or like Ninja Turtles even peripherally. What's cool about it is that it's a story that takes place in the future. Something has obviously happened. One remains. Who is that one? What the heck happened? And where does the story go from there? So I think it scratches all of the sort of nostalgic Ninja Turtle itch that you might get from, I remember, these characters and that character. I wonder what everyone's there. You'll see what happens. But also you're not required to read 100 plus issues of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle IDW series in order for this to work for you. I've had a number of people who like comic books but aren't like nerds like us who gotta get it all. Treat it like Pokemon. What do you mean? I know comics on the floor just being buried in them, but a lot of people have said, you know what book I bought and I read it in one sitting. It was The Last Ronin. Have you heard of that? And I said, the Ninja Turtles one? And like, yeah. I'm like, that's awesome. You read it. That's great. It's an awesome book. The creative team, I think, is a lot of the same people who Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird are the first people who are credited. Tom Waltz, who wrote the majority of the series for IDW, which I didn't read it all, but what I have read, I liked it a lot. And I think the artist is Esau and Isaac Escorza, Ben Bishop, and Luis Antonio Delgado. You've got a couple of creative teams because of flashback scenes. Okay. So you know where you are in the stream of time based on the artist change. So it all works quite nicely. So yeah, let's give those other publishers a little bit of love too. Yeah. Because there are many series all across the comic book shelf when you go there. It's not just Marvel and DC.
Speaking of, Dark Horse Comics, they do tons of 4-issue miniseries and 6-issue miniseries, self-contained stuff. They've got loads and loads to choose from. This is X-Ray Robot. It's by Mike and Laura Allred. The art style is more like his current stuff, so it's got slightly more detail to it, more texture to it. It's still got that Allred vibe, but it feels very different, and he does some quite experimental stuff in here. The whole thing is experimental, so this is about interdimensional travel. The main guy scientist puts his consciousness into this robot and sends it to other dimensions so they can view other dimensions. Something doesn't quite go right, and what they're expecting it to do doesn't happen. Because, otherwise, it's just a successful experiment, one shot. This is a 4-issue miniseries, man. Something's got to happen. So it just gets weird. And some of it is just a bit of kind of Allred's philosophy. There's a lot of cameos by people, but I don't know who they are. I'm really bad. When someone draws like other artists in their stuff, like, oh, I'm just going to draw Joe Quesada to say, hi, Joe Quesada. And I'm looking at it going, that guy really sticks out, but I don't know why. Why does he look so weird? Why is his chin so big? It's just, it doesn't work for me. So there are cameos in this, but I don't get it. Also, you will get a cameo. No, I'm not going to spoil it. There are some character cameos as well.
That's cool.
It's a very strange series. I think I'm recommending it in our best top 10 miniseries of all time, in theory. But I've read it twice. I always rate it really highly because it's just a fun experience. But every time it gets to that last page and I go, huh. Not like, oh, but just, right. I don't know what to think. But it leaves me thinking. It leaves me trying to figure out even just how I feel, what it means. Are we ever going to see it again? Don't know. But it's just a weird little rompy bit of strangeness from the Allreds. And I love it. I love his art style so much.
Yeah, I really enjoy them as a creative duo as well. They're clearly right for each other, right? So I hope they stick together as that artist team with the colorist and his pencils. It's just perfect. It works. Man. It's a perfect team, man. Yeah, 100%. That's awesome. Nice pick. Shout out to the Allreds. I love Mike Allred. Clearly, iZombie, Silver Surfer, number of books that I haven't read Mad Men or that's the name character. I haven't read it.
I've got the Madman Library editions. There's one more to come. Volume 6 is to come, and then I'm going to do a reading order. I
haven't read them at all.
I've never read it.
Number 5 for me. You put the pressure on when you said top 10 all time. I'm like, is it all time? I know.
Well, it's rare. In theory.
We'll make more. We'll make more.
Okay, I'm going to go... These are the ones that spring to mind. Mini-series that happen to spring to mind today.
I'm going to go with the obvious oldie, goodie. Kurt Busiek, Alex Ross. That's Marvels. A view into the Marvel universe. It's from a street level. From a reporter's perspective. Every cool event, every moment in the Marvel universe that happened initially. Well, not every. I'm kind of being hyperbolic, but the coming of Galactus, for instance.
Yeah.
Big moments, right? Those hallmark watershed moments. So for me, the first time I read this is I forgot the 10-year anniversary, this particular copy. So it's got a lot of...
What, is that a deluxe?
It's got a lot of bonus material in it, like the scripts and... For those who don't know Alex Ross's work, that are hearing that name for the first time, he paints things to look realistic. I always remember the Coming of Galactus issue because everything is painted with that sort of realistic vibe. When Silver Surfer shows up for the first time as the Herald of Galactus, I remember reading it and seeing the art to it, and I got scared. I'm like, if this was real,
I would not put the perspective there, doesn't it?
Yeah. It really, really does put a perspective of how scary it would be if this was reality.
It's the most terrifying upskirt in the Marvel universe.
I mean, what? Like, look at this. This is terrifying. If I lived in this city and this was happening monthly because there was a comic book event taking place, I would move.
You would move. Surely.
But reading it in a superhero comic book or a cartoon, it's like, man... That'd be so cool on your way to school to see Superman fly by and fight Mongol. No, it wouldn't.
Incidentally, though, dude, your Alex Ross pick, I do have. I think it's the page. I think it's one of the pages from Marvels that they used for this book. Take a gander. Oh man, this is the biggest book. It's f***ing heavy.
It's huge.
So it's they fantastic had an Eternal... for the whole Galactus. And it's like a Galactus size, so it's not, obviously, because it'd be slightly bigger.
Where do you put that?
It's just down by the side of a bookcase, and it's still sealed. I've never opened it. But it's got the original story, and then it's got the Lee and Buscema storyline from 120 to 123, and then the John Byrne, Galactus Falls. It's crazy big. Like, what the I had 2 of these. I had Marvels in this size, and I went to show my daughter. I went, look at the amazing art in this book. And to turn the page felt like a workout. Right. Like everything blows over there.
It's
I just
crazy.
got rid of
That's
it.
like a
You can't
table.
read it. It's a novelty more than anything. I was going to have it up
Yeah.
just to kind of have it almost like a piece of art.
You should
But
bring
you
that
can't read it.
on the bus next time you want to read a book. Just
I'm
put
going to
that.
have to buy
Excuse
a
me, I
bigger
need
backpack.
gonna have to buy a ticket for your book.
Excuse me, sir.
Dave, anything else before we wrap up the show?
Just one last little note in terms of thanking everyone who's jumped onto YouTube to follow. There's been quite a nice burst of followers on YouTube lately and increasing views. If you want to give us a follow, give us a like, leave a comment, all that good stuff. It really helps us expand on YouTube. If you want to join in with the chat stuff, but you don't want to do it on YouTube, come to our Discord. Have a chat in there instead. Also, Facebook offered a group for the Omniverse Comics Guide. So there is now an Omniverse Comics Guide group. So if you want to go on there and make your own recommendations and put some links to YouTube channels you like and websites you like, and it can be a bit of a digest for loads of other places that do comic stuff. If people are doing good work, their stuff should be shared. It's really hard to share your stuff anywhere. People don't like it. It's one of the key rules. Don't promote yourself. Don't promote your work. Don't promote your podcast. Like, come on. Let's just help each other out. So that rule doesn't exist, at least for now, on the Omniverse Comics Guide, unless it gets a bit nuts and it might have to come in. We'll limit it somehow. Jump on. Promote your work. Promote your stuff. We want to see it. There's been some great YouTube channels I've been watching lately that I just want to yell about. So maybe you'll see some of those in there as well.
Awesome. That's great. That's exciting. Thank you. Thank you, everybody who tunes in every week on the Twitch and chats with us and fact checks us and make sure they're keeping us honest. That's always helpful. And everyone who watches YouTube, Spotify, all that good stuff, like Dave said. Thank you. Don't forget to give us a rate and review. As always, a blast. Thank you, my friend.
It's been a beaut, man. It's nice to be back.
Very nice to be back. We'll be back next week with another top 10. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.